All right, good morning, 6A, 6B, 6G. Today we're going to be learning how to read poetry. Many of you have already watched the YouTube film that I posted above this video. But let's take us back last week to the introduction of poetry. So what did we learn about poetry? We learned what poetry is. It is a special type of literature produced by poets. There's three major things that poems or poetry has. It has usually rhythm, some type of beat, B, some type of rhyme or repetition of rhyme, and three, special language. We know that poetry, there's a lot of different forms. There's free verse, haiku, couplet, humorous poems, lyrical. There are so many different types of poetry. We learn some of those, and we learn about the special type of language called figurative language or literary devices, which you should already know from either grade 3 or grade 4 or grade 5. You, in one of those, that weird funny video, you should have learned about simile, personification, metaphor, alliteration, and onomatopoeia. Simile is a comparison using like or as. Metaphor is a comparison not using like or as. Onomatopoeia is the sound of a word of a sound that's actually the word itself. Personification is giving human-like qualities to an inanimate object or an object that's not human. And lastly, alliteration is a repetition of consonant blends. So those were the 5 literary terms that you guys went over. And in addition to that, some of you did the Kahoot challenge. Actually, lots of people did the Kahoot challenge. And I think those are closing either Tuesday or Wednesday. So today we're going to learn how to read poetry. I think it's a very special skill to do. Many of you, or most of you, listen to music. And with that is a form of poetry. That's lyrical poetry. So most of you are accustomed to poetry and listen to it every single day. I decided to give a backdrop of the spring. I know a lot of you, you can start to see the flowers out and the blossoms on the trees and the leaves are growing. And I thought we'd do some poems learning how to read poetry on the theme of spring or seasons coming up. So we're going to reiterate some of the lessons we learned in that YouTube video that was 8 minutes, the one that was posted above this video, on how reading poetry is a skill. And it takes time. It's not easy. It takes years to develop, just like any other skill. But he did sum up 3 things that we should do. Number 1, when reading poetry, just read the poem, do one read through, which we will do today. Number 2, look for any special, when you read again, look for any special language or figurative language. And number 3, we reflect and think about what the poem's about. So we're going to use that approach today. So I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to put a simple poem up. We're going to do those 3 steps. Just read through. Number 2, look at the special language when we read through again. And then number 3, look at the big theme overall. So I'm going to share the screen and we're going to learn how to read poetry the correct way, because a lot of people when you're younger, they just read poetry 1 through and they think they know everything. Poetry is not like that. Poetry is actually, you have to spend some time on it. So I'm going to share the screen and we're going to read a poem, and it's about the theme of a spring, like I said before. This one's called Round and Round. So the first thing, we're just going to do a read through. Round and round, bury me dark, bury me deep, let me lie a while asleep. Let my root stretch out, uncoil, sifting goodness from the soil. Let me push my small shoot where it reaches up to light and air. Leaves uncrinkle one by one, soaking up warm rays of sun, so that the soil and light and air help me grow and last to bear a flower that brings the fumbling bee to store bright pollen at his knee. And so the flower becomes a fruit that holds a seed that grows a shoot, which helped by soil and sun and rain, begins the cycle once again as life goes slowly round and round on nature's strange, amazing ground. All right, so that was the first read through of this. So obviously, it's about the growing of looks like some type of bean plant um, from the picture. But nevertheless, we'll read it again and look at some figurative language or words we might not know. Round and round. So just in the title, we know that there's a repetition. And repetition is something that poets use to reinforce a concept. So they're trying to reinforce something. Anytime there's repeating things, like lyrics do it and songs do it all the time, the author wants you to figure out what that concept is through repetition. So we have round and round, a little bit of repetition. Bury me dark. Okay, so bury me dark. We have, I guess this is a first person POV from the seed's perspective. So we have a little bit of personification here, bury me dark. We know that most human beings would not want to be buried dark in the ground. So this is personification of this being, and we have a first person POV. Bury me dark, bury me deep. Again, here, some of that repetition. Let me lie a while asleep. Again, we have some personification here. We're giving human-like qualities to something that does not have those human qualities. We know that seeds do not sleep. Yes, they germinate, and yes, they're able to, grow, but they're not asleep. So there's some personification. Let my roots stretch out, uncoil, sifting goodness from the soil. All right, we have some rhyme: deep, asleep, uncoil, and soil. Let me push my small shoot where it reaches up to light and air. Well, if we don't know what a shoot is, it's for those of you who may not have done bean plants when you were in primary. We know it's that little vegetation that grows out from the seed to go out of the soil to reach the sun. So that's that special word. So we're going to look for any words that we might not know. Leaves uncrinkle one by one, soaking up warm rays of sun. Well, we know what crinkle means. It means like when you, like the paper, when you crinkle it up, you smush it. Uncrinkle means to unsmush. It turns bigger. Soaking up warm rays of sun so that soil and light and air help me grow at last to bear. Okay. A flower that brings the fumbling bee. Bees don't really fumble. That is, again, giving personification, giving human-like qualities to an insect, which is the bee. To store bright pollen at his knee. I guess you can say that bees do probably have legs. I don't know if they have knees like human beings. So I think that's a bit of personification there. And so the flower becomes a fruit that holds a seed that grows a shoot. Again, we have some rhyme there. Which helped by soil and sun and rain begins the cycle once again. This cycle does not mean bicycle. It means like something that goes over again and again. If you know a bicycle, the wheels will cycle, or they'll go over and over once again. A cycle would be kind of like if you put a load in the wash and it's on a soap cycle, or it's on a heat cycle or hot water, it goes over again and again and again. That's what cycle is. Once again, as life goes slowly round and round. Okay, here's the title that's been placed in one of the paragraphs of the poem. That's really important. So we should know what that means. On nature's strange, amazing ground. Okay. So I think most of those words that we know, maybe, like I said, cycle, yeah, we kind of know what that is. You do them in gym classes, cycles, and shoot may have been kind of new. Fumbling means, to kind of fall. Pollen, if you didn't know what that is, it's just it's kind of like a seed from a flower that is is basically goes from flower to flower, that bees pick up and other insects, and allow those seeds to go to flower and flower. Uncrinkle, most of this uncoil means to, we know to coil up like a snake, it's all wrapped up, and uncoil means it uncoils or it brings forth. So most of the stuff that we know. So now that we've gone over those weird kind of words or the repetition of words, literary devices, we figure out what the poem's about. Round and round. Well, round and round, I believe, has to do with that word, the cycle. We know we know of the 4 seasons that we have in Canada that we blatantly see. We're in the spring season right now, and it goes from summer to fall, and to winter, and then to spring, and then to summer, then fall. Round and round is like those cycles, those seasons. They always come up, and it's always the same ones. And this is what this poem is about in the title, Round and Round. Here we go again. So again, from this poem, what we can get from it, the interpretation is it's about the seed who wants to be buried into the ground and wait till it's time to get out of the soil. And then as it gets the good nutrients from the soil, it pushes up and reaches the light in the air. It then grows bigger, and there's a transition here where it grows bigger, and a little bit of time has passed here where the shoot is a little bigger. It's got leaves now, so it's no longer like here. It looks kind of like this now with leaves. Leaves uncrinkle one by one, soaking up warm rays of sun. So this plant is getting bigger, so that the soil and light and air help me grow and last to bear. So now it's getting a lot bigger. A flower that brings the fumbling bee to store bright pollen at his knee. So now the plant is flowering, and then the bees are all over it. So it starts off with this small seed, which becomes a shoot, and then it becomes almost this big plant, and now it flowers. And it seems like here there's almost a POV change. It goes from first person narrative to third person. And so the flower becomes a fruit that holds a seed that grows a shoot, which helped by soil and sun and rain begins the cycle once again as life goes slowly round and round on nature's strange, amazing ground. So again, it talks about from the growth of this, it looks like a bean plant, from seed to shoot to plant to flower. It just shows you this life cycle of a bean plant, and then how when the flower comes up, it then germinates, it reproduces itself, it has those little pollen, and then the bees come, and then they're going to put those on pollen onto other flowers. So the whole cycle is there. It talks about the cycle of, you know, the sun and the rain and the light, and at the end it reinforces what the title is talking about. Life goes slowly round and round, it cycles, and the setting is again on nature's strange, amazing ground. So we know that the setting is the ground, with the earth and the soil, and we know the main character in this poem is this plant, or you know, this the development of a plant from seed to shoot, sprout, and then all the way up to a big plant with a flower. And that's the main character. It looks, it goes from a first person point of view to a third person point of view around here. And then we basically know what the theme of the poem is, or the basic plot. It's about again, a plant that's growing, and that's it. So when reading poetry, there is, again, a lot of things going on. It takes a while to unpack some of those things that we just talked about. And again, when you're reading poems, you gotta slow down. You cannot run through them. It is a skill, and it takes years. And I would say most of you, when you get into high school, you're going to have to do poetry. You're going to have to learn how to read Shakespeare and other poems, and in grade 7 and 8 as well. So when you're reading poetry, the 3 things that we learned: slow down, read through it once over. Number 2, look for any special language. And number 3, figure out what it's all about. Now I'm going to have you guys do your own poem. I'm going to attach the poem in the video so you can see it in case you can't get the attachment. I will put the attachment there, but I will also put it up in the video, and you could just pause the video and then you can look through the poem there. It's a very simple one. It's not a hard one to do. And then I attached a Google form for you to do. It's just multiple choice. There's no written answers. You just answer the questions and then you send it through. It's not hard to do. You do the best that you can. So I'm going to put the poem up so that we can all see. I'll be a couple of seconds here as I do that. So I'm just going to share the screen here, and there we go. Yeah, so this is the poem that you guys are going to be doing on your own. It's a small one. It's not a 2-pager. It's called Backyard Acrobat. And again, before you guys, do those questions and answers in the poem, do 3 things. Go through those steps that we learned today. Number 1, read through the poem once over. Number 2, look at the special words that you may not know what the meaning is, or you may not remember. Go look the word up if you don't know what that word means, and that will be able to help you understand the rest of the sentences. And number 3, look at the main themes. Who are the characters in the poem? What's the setting? Where does it take place? And what's going on? Those are the 3 things. And what's the author trying to say? Why do we have a picture here of a squirrel and looks like some kind of donut or bagel, and then backyard acrobat? So those are things to think about when you do this poem by yourself. Okay, guys. So anyway, I thank everyone that did the Kahoot challenge. I think those are ending Tuesday and Wednesday. Do your best on this first reading of poetry on the Google form, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and hopefully the weather gets a little bit more sunny and a little bit better. All right, guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you guys later.